Alright, this is Unit 6, Cognition and Memory Notes. This is Video 1. We will look at information processing. All the information can be found in your textbook on page 254 to 258. You should be taking notes in your packet. The notes in the packet are going to be covered on page 4. So let's kind of first talk about what we're going to uncover in this presentation. First thing you will understand is the process of how our memory works, how we encode, store, and then retrieve information. Second thing we will look at is we will understand the information processing model. And then the third thing we will look at is how information in the information processing model moves from sensory memory to short-term memory to long-term memory. Okay, first let's get a definition of memory. Memory is learning that has persisted over time, information that can be stored and can be retrieved. So it's something that you have learned and has stayed with you over time, and it is something that you can go back and retrieve upon. A model of how memory works can help us think about how we form and retrieve memories. One model that has often been used in computer information processing system, which is somewhat similar to the human memory. So in order to really understand memory, what they're saying here is they compare our memory to a human computer, or not a human computer, just a computer in general. First thing we do is we encode the information. So you type on the keyboard, okay, in a document, you type in the information you want to save. Second thing you do then is you store it, you save it somewhere. And then lastly, you're able to retain or retrieve that information if needed to be called upon. Okay, so the first step here is the process of encoding. Okay, a process by which a stimulus is translated into a mental code, putting information into the brain. So like I said before, it's when maybe you're typing into your computer, okay, you're typing into your brain, or you're processing into the brain the different events that happen to you. And we will talk about the different types of experience you have that encode the information. And we'll also talk about later in this section, or later in the textbook, about when you have problems when you encode things incorrectly, because that could be problems with why you forget stuff. Okay, so encoding information into your brain. So the example here, the analogy they use with the computer, would be typing information into the computer. Second thing is storage. Second thing that happens when you're working with your memory. It's changes in the neural system that allow retention. So you're retaining information, okay? You're saving the document, or you're storing it somewhere in your brain. And we will talk about the different ways or places that information is stored in your brain. Okay? Pressing Control Save, saving the information. You should probably remember some of the places that information is stored: the hippocampus, temporal lobe. Okay, we've talked about these before. Retrieval. Retrieval is the process of getting the information out of the memory storage, getting information out of the brain. Sometimes we have some cues to help us that information has been really stored down within our brain. So we may say something like, well, it starts with an S if you have to figure out what the term may be. So we'll talk about ways that we can get retrieval cues to get the information out. But the big thing here is, how do we get it out? Okay, did you store it correctly to retrieve the information? Finding your document and opening it up. Okay, so the brain versus the computer, the analogy that they use. Computers process information faster than humans do. The human brain is slower but capable of doing many more things at once. Okay, so we're able to do parallel processing. We've talked about that before. Okay, when you're doing a computer system, you might only be able to kind of be saving one document at a time, but our brain is saving a lot of things and actively doing a lot of things at once. Okay, so how does our memory work? There are theories of understanding memory. The first one that your book talks about and explains very little on is the connectionism model. And the other one is the three-box model. Okay, connectionism is a newer theory, so they don't have a ton of information on this theory yet. They're just kind of understanding the workings of it. but it's a newer theory on memory that views our memories as emerging from just the interconnection of neural networks. Okay, so the reason why we're remembering is because of something's going on with our neural networks that's causing us to have these spontaneous memories. Specific memories arise from particular activation patterns within these networks. So it's all about understanding the neural networks in the brain. The other theory is the three-box model of memory. This is the one that we will explore in detail about how our memory works. Richard Atkinson and Richard Schifrin proposed that we form memories using these three stages. The first memory we experience is the sensory memory, very quick experience, okay, a flash of a light, right? It then is either, it then may be just kind of released from our memory and thrown away, or could enter our short-term memory. Our short-term memory can last up to a minute. These are items, ideas, okay, maybe that are unusual or stand out. And then if they're not rehearsed, they're thrown away. And then if they're rehearsed, okay, over and over and over again, they will go into the long-term memory. Okay, first memory that we have is our sensory memory. Okay, you're hearing my voice right now. It's saying lots of things. However, you're not going to remember every single thing I'm saying to you. Okay, it's the immediate initial recording of sensory information in the memory system. Okay, there was a lot of pictures and a lot of different words on those screens in the previous screens. You may not have encoded all the information. Okay, we have a lot of sensory experiences. Iconic is the visual things that we have. So sensory memory for vision, it lasts usually a fraction of a second in our memory. And then you have echoic. Echoic is the acoustic or the sensory memory for sound. So usually that lasts 3 to 4 seconds. So let's go through this. I have a PowerPoint on the board, okay, and I flip the slide. Usually it'll only remain in your brain for a fraction of a second of what I had up there. However, if I'm lecturing to you about what is up there, usually that can echo a little bit longer in your memory for 3 to 4 seconds. So if I said, what did I just say? You may be able to say, wait, she was talking about this 3 seconds ago. Okay, versus maybe what you saw on the board. It's stored for just an instant, and most of it gets unprocessed. We then move to short-term memory. Okay, activated memory that holds a few items briefly, such as the 7 digits of a phone number while dialing before the information is stored and forgotten. So short-term memory is that short amount of time that you're able to remember an item. Usually we could remember 7 items. Time, you only hold items for up to a minute. In capacity, usually you remember 7 digits, plus or minus 2, they say. Oftentimes we may remember something if it is unusual or if it's rehearsed. The information will be stored in long-term or forgotten if it isn't rehearsed. So this only lasts a little bit of time. Okay, and then it's going to transition into our long-term memory. Usually when it transitions into the long-term memory, it's been rehearsed over and over and over again. Long-term memory, though, it has an unlimited storehouse for information. It's rehearsed, rehearsed, rehearsed. It has elaboration on it. Okay. So some people argue that we need to modify the 3-stage model, okay, that has been the understanding of the sensory short-term, long-term. They say some information is automatically processed in the long-term and we never, without our conscious awareness, so we don't necessarily need to go through a rehearsal process, that it automatically just happens. So sometimes memories may pass from sensory to short-term and automatically just without a lot of effort go into our long-term. Other people say we have a working memory, which is a newer understanding of our short-term memory that focuses on consciousness, activating processes of incoming auditory information and visual spatial information, and of information retrieved from long-term memory. So it's a little bit more expanded and more detail on understanding of our working memory. So to recap, you should be able to understand the definition of memory. You should understand the components of what does encoding, storage, and retrieving mean. You should understand the information processing model, which goes from sensory to short-term to long-term. You should have an idea what the working memory is.